in Arizona or any place else. Because, when I say no one, I mean no one among, no significant number among party activists, because they actively dislike the Barr campaign. The Barr campaign never, for instance, did any outreach that I can figure out to anybody who would be attracted to libertarian ideas from the left. Nothing, nada. Nothing. There was no reference, very little reference to war issues, which was an issue that we could have at least co-opted to some extent, given the fact that Obama, during the course of the general election campaign, stopped talking about ending the war and started talking about shifting troops, and then started talking about increasing troops in Afghanistan, which is now apparently his president, and no one's leaving Iraq. I don't know, maybe you caught it, I missed it. I forgot, what is the date we're getting out of Iraq? I can't remember it. In the Democratic primaries.
3015.
In the Democratic primaries, maybe they've adopted the McCain 100-year occupation strategy, I don't know. But if you recall, in the Democratic primaries, the Democrats couldn't get to the left of each other on this issue, getting out of it. They were arguing, I saw a debate between John Edwards, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama, where they were nitpicking whether or not it would be weeks or months before we got out of Iraq. And they were arguing about whether there would be somebody left in the embassy there or not to turn off the lights when they left. It was that sort of debate. Yeah. What happened to that in the general election campaign? Completely disappeared. Yeah. That's a hole, that's an opening that the Libertarian Party candidate should have pushed himself right through. It didn't occur. And there are dozens of other issues, for instance, the drug war. You hear Bob Barr talking about the drug war. The only time he talked about the drug war was when he was forced to by inquisitive newsmen who wondered how the heck this drug warrior ended up as a Libertarian Party candidate, that he had to make some remark about that. In fact, his whole campaign, I think remember that old song? I don't know who did that song. I'm Sorry, remember that? I'm Sorry, So Sorry. Was it Country and West?
Connie Francis.
Connie Francis, okay, Connie, that's good. One vote for Connie Francis. That should have been the Bob Barr campaign song, because in fact he ran in the opposite to all the other, or at least supposedly had remorse for all the major positions he'd taken in the past. That doesn't appeal to even the tiniest sliver of the American populace. To say, I'm here to tell you about some ideas that I used to not believe in, but I sort of support now. Who would listen to such a campaign? It turns out 0.4% of the populace, that's about it. So I think that, in fact, significant changes have to be made. This, by the way, this entire presentation today is sort of an introduction to the speech that I'm going to be given on January 31st, so I don't want to take up a lot of time and go into a lot of detail. But let me whet your appetite a little bit with some ideas that I have about what we have to do in the future, the Libertarian Party has to do in the future, if it's going to be anything other than a completely meaningless dead letter party. And first of all, we got to start that revival of the Libertarian Party at the local level. And the national campaigns can't run away from the local parties. The national candidates have one thing, one currency, if you will, that the local parties don't have. And that is the news media is interested in presidential and vice presidential candidates. So, I can remember in 1996, I think it took me 30 minutes on the phone to set up 3 days worth of interviews for Harry Brown in Arizona. Why? Because I said, you don't know me, but I've got a presidential candidate coming to town in 3 weeks. You have a slot on Thursday afternoon to interview him, and etc. Whether it was radio, television, Channel 8, the Arizona Republic Editorial Board, they all lined up like that. Not because of me, but not because of Harry Brown, because they didn't know who the hell Harry Brown was. But because he was a presidential candidate, and they content. And a presidential candidate is content. That's one thing we can't do on a local level. But when that LP candidate comes to town, they've got to put their arms around the local candidate. You've got to have that synergy, so that on the television interview, on the radio interview, there's the National Party candidate saying, A, I'm a libertarian, something that I don't think Bob Barr said very often, and B, I support so-and-so who's running for United States Senate in Arizona, or such and such is running for mayor of Phoenix, or whatever the political office is. That has to be joined and united so that you get double bang for your buck, so to speak. Instead, you have national candidates essentially running away from local candidates. That doesn't work. Second, we have to recognize that there's no contradiction between upholding fundamental libertarian ideals and addressing political issues. And that means not only specific issues that have to be raised, like Bill of Rights enforcement or drug law or whatever, things that are topical that appeal or have potential appeal to all sorts of segments of the populace, but also we shouldn't be running away from our own platform. As I mentioned, I was at the 2006 convention in Portland, and that was just disgraceful action. It may have been done essentially out of ignorance, but it was orchestrated by people who simply wanted to gut the platform so that all of the strong language, the language that had been, now I'm a little bit biased here, because I was national platform chair for 2 years, 2000 and 1996, and in 98 and 2000 I was the platform chair. And so I was real proud of all the language everybody came up with that just was flushed down the toilet in Portland. But the truth is, we need to have national candidates who embrace the platform and to urge it. You know, often you hear this criticism, oh no, the platform is too hard-edged and it hurts the candidates. You ever hear that? Oh, it hurts them. And you hear these anecdotal stories about how Joe Blow, in running in Oregon in 1992, was quizzed about some provision in the platform that he or she couldn't defend. Well, at least it got publicity. At least somebody was talking about the platform and about libertarian ideas. In fact, my experience as a candidate is that most news media, most people don't do much looking at the platform unless they do an opposition research. But even so, if it's raised during a debate or an interview, you get to respond to it. So we need some platform that is reasonably detailed, that is fundamental and radical, because we are a radical movement. And that's the other thing. We can't go on thinking that the solution to the woes of the Libertarian Party is that the solution to it is mimicking the Republicans and Democrats, both in terms of their language and style, but in terms of their tactics. That's a state-supported duopoly. We can't beat them on their grounds. Ballot access problems, other statutory problems. The news media is locked in, generally speaking, the mainstream news media is locked in to Republicans and Democrats. That's where the news is, that's where the horse race is, etc. We can't think that just because we put on a suit and talk politely and get onto the ballot, that we're going to be treated equally. When I say we here, I mean Libertarian Party candidates. That doesn't work that way at all. We are an insurgency, not part of the duopoly, and so we have to start thinking like an insurgency. What can we do outside the box that will gain media attention? What can we do that's different than the How do we distinguish ourselves? You know, it's people who talk a lot about branding and libertarian branding of libertarianism never thought very much about how is it that we distinguish our product. Our product is different because our ideas are different, our principles are different, and the way we apply those to specific political issues is vastly different than the Republicans and Democrats. And we ought not to avoid that, we ought to embrace that. That ought to be the hallmark of libertarianism, is that we are fundamentally different than the Republicans and Democrats. And finally, we've got to proudly proclaim, first of all, before I get to the punchline, we can't allow ourselves to be duped, hornswoggled, whatever the term is, convinced, to support candidates whose only claim to fame is that they have a claim to fame, that they have some bit of celebrity. Because, first of all, whatever that celebrity is going to pale in comparison to the celebrity of the Republicans and Democrats. And if the Republicans and Democrats don't have that celebrity, they can buy it, because they spend hundreds of millions of dollars on their national campaign. We can't think that because somebody is a former congressman, that therefore the media is going to flock to that person and the voters are all going to say, oh, yeah, I forgot, this guy's a former congressman, I should vote for him. It doesn't work that way at all.